Hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining us here in the newsroom. I'm Yoo-ji Hee. Now, what a week it has been. Here in the nation on Thursday, some 670,000 high school seniors took their pencils and sat down for the annual college entrance exam. For those of our viewers who actually took this exam, we wish you the best of luck. And over in the United States, President Barack Obama clinched his second term in office after a long and bitter battle against his rival Mitt Romney. For more news that have been keeping our reporters very busy throughout this week, let's go and talk to them and see what they have to say. In the Newsroom begins now. Right, so one of the highlights of this week was the U.S. presidential election, wasn't it?
Yes, kept everyone busy.
Very, very busy. I mean, Korea being one of the closest allied nations of the United States, I mean, caused quite a hype in the nation, as well as our Arirang TV.
Right. I mean, it was really neat for us to just watch it live all together. The people going in to vote, and I know it was past midnight in the States when the final election results came out, but here it was mid-afternoon.
Mid-afternoon, and Yeon-ji, we went to you live, and you talked about the latest, the outcome of the polls. I mean, it must have been nerve-wracking for you. How did you handle it?
Just, in the morning, it went as usual, went by as usual, but then all of a sudden, the anchors for the morning newscast, Tan and Mark, they're like, oh, why don't we just connect with you live, for 12 o'clock news. That's 3 hours before, the Americans went to the polls in Alaska and, wrap up their, votes there. So I was like, from then, I just started watching the CNN live coverage and saw how, the anchors reacted with different, correspondents out in the field, and my eyes were just like glued to the screen, just checking all the numbers. And even when, I went on air, like somebody shouted to my back, it's like, Yeon-ji, the numbers changed. So I was like, oh my word. But I just kept my calm and gave out the latest results. So I was very happy with it. But
I mean, there's so many states, so it must be very difficult to keep tally and the live.
And it was a neck and neck race in many of the swing states, and we didn't know whether Obama would really win or Romney.
Right, so while that's all been going on, Obama got another 4 years in the White House. I mean, the tight race to the Blue House continues. Since it's a three-horse race, I believe we had a markman for each candidate. And you, Yeon-ji, have been following
covering all elections.
I know, especially Ahn Cheol-soo. How did that go?
Yes, so Arirang News has been having this special coverage on each of the key leading candidates here in Korea. And the first week, Ji-yoon covered Park Geun-hye, the ruling Conservative Century Party's candidate Park Geun-hye. And then the following week, Blue Office correspondent Jin-ju covered Moon Jae-in of the main opposition Democratic United Party. And then the third week, yes, I covered the independent candidate Ahn Cheol-soo.
Take a closer look at Liberal independent candidate Ahn Cheol-soo.
Right, and we also ask whether Ahn Cheol-soo, a candidate without any party backing, can really win the Korean presidency. Kim Yeon-ji joins us now to shed some light on the maverick outsider. Hello, Yeon-ji.
Hello, Sean. Hello, Chie. A maverick outsider indeed. I've never seen a person with so many careers that are as unrelated as those held by Ahn Cheol-soo. The 50-year-old Liberal independent candidate was a former medical doctor, professor, the founder of antivirus software company Ahn Lab, as well as a philanthropist. And although he does not have any party affiliation or previous political experience, his supporters say that's what makes Ahn a strong candidate in this year's election.
Yeah, a lot of people must have been quite intrigued by what you could tell us more about Ahn Cheol-soo, because what we know that he has a very high-profile career, but other than that, we don't really know about his political background, why he's there. So how did that go? You went to his campaign headquarters.
Right. It was my first time actually visiting the headquarters, and it just really struck me because when I went in there, the name of that place, that open place, was called Sincerity Cafe. And you know, like how he emphasizes sincerity and his truthfulness, that he really wants to become a president for the people, you know. So that little space is also a cafe, and it's a working space for the volunteers, the camp, and it could also turn into a press conference, you know, when Ahn Cheol-soo has very important things to say. 안녕하세요. 예, 저 기다리겠습니다. 예. 그래서 진심 카페라는 거는, 그러니까 이 장소가 캠프 사무실인 동시에 이제 기자회견도 하는 곳이고, 진심 카페에 So if you walk into his office, you would see what his leadership style is. His leadership style is based on a parallel leadership structure. So he encourages everyone, no matter what their position is, come together and just throw ideas and then try to find a solution. I was very touched by that new style of leadership, and his camp was
no
absolutely different.
Who did that before, right?
No. When you go to other party headquarters, it's rather formal, and the atmosphere is very different. So yeah, I really liked it. I enjoyed it.
I see. I mean, we cannot leave out the issue of merging between Democratic United Party candidate Moon Jae-in and Ahn Cheol-soo. There's been talks like when, how are they going to settle the differences and so on. What was the latest throughout this week?
Actually, on Tuesday, the two candidates met and they agreed to unify their candidacies before they have to register for the election, which is November 25th. So they did agree, but we don't know how they are going to go about unifying the candidacies.
And whose name will actually be on the ballot,
I
right?
know. Very nervous.
I think you have someone in mind.
No, I'm just very, I think the two candidates are very, nice individuals. It doesn't mean that, both of them are cut out for the job of becoming president, but still,
Yeah, I bet that ruling Unity Party wasn't very happy with the idea of these two liberal candidates merging together. Some say that this is just a political maneuver. This has nothing to do with, working up the national interest, but it's more of trying to get their say out there. But I guess this whole controversy will go on for a while. At least November 25th and 26th, wasn't it?
Right.
The
Yeah,
registration
that's right.
date. Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Yeon-ji. And another hot issue in the country, right? What most of us have already gone through, thank God. Yes, college entrance exam. Oops, yes. It's a big deal in the country, isn't it? Seung-ha, you were out very early in the morning to cover this story. Tell us.
Yes, this morning I was at a high school just down the hill. When I got there, it was around 6 a.m. in the morning. It was still very dark, but I could still see groups of high school students preparing to cheer for their seniors, and the atmosphere there was really enthusiastic. And even though it's a huge exam day for the students, but I felt something like a festival kind of thing. Yeah, it was
Air of excitement.
Yeah, air of excitement. So it was really exciting to be at the site this morning. It's very early in the morning, but this group of high school students are cheering and shouting in the dark. They are not cheering for a sporting event, but for their seniors who are about to take the College Scholastic Ability Test, a state-administered college entrance exam. Over 600,000 students applied for the test at some 1,000 test venues across the country. From 8 in the morning until around 5 in the afternoon, students spend more than 8 hours taking the test. Today could be the most important day in these students' lives to date. In Korea, over 70% of high school students enter college, and the university they go to has a significant impact on the rest of their lives.
저 끝나야 되는데. 현수막? 뭐 중동거 맞죠? 중동거. 이따가 응원하는 거 좀 찍을게요. 오케이. 찍으면 되겠다.
내가 준비! 같이 외치게!
한국말로 해요? 선배 저 여기 민터뷰 좀. 나? 고마워요. 해요? 어제 언제부터 와서 응원했고, 준비했고, 얼마나 준비했어요?
저희가 어제
다 같이 응원 메시지.
뭐 할래? 가자! 건배 있게 공연! 전액! 선행! 대만의 춤! 우리 출연했다!
아니 나 아리랑 TV에서 나온 기자인데 제가 좋은 기운 불어넣으라고 우리 한마디만 해줘 한마디만 심정 한마디.
많이 떨리지만 그래도 제일 노력한 결과에 스스로 건강하게 참으시고
여기 배경 좀 만드시면 안 돼요? 그냥 응원하고 있는 것처럼. 그래 이건 스탠드업 할 건데. 응원. In elementary, middle, and high school. Today could be the most important day in these students' lives to date. 오늘 너무 고마워요. 화이팅! 수고하셨어요.
I mean, every year we take this exam during November, which is very, very cold here in Korea, sub-zero temperatures most of the time. But how is the weather today in particular?
Today wasn't as cold as when I, back in high school, I had the chance to cheer for my seniors. I remember that the day was really, really cold, but today wasn't as cold as that day, probably because I was wearing layers of
Yeah, you were
pants.
prepared.
I was prepared, and I was wearing layers of socks as well, so it wasn't as cold.
Do you guys remember? I mean, I think we all know that none of us really took this sunung, but I think we must have had a very different experience. Do you
Right, I mean,
remember
we all
what
took
happened?
tests, right, to get into college. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised at how long this sunung exam is.
More than 8 hours?
It starts at 8 a.m. in the morning and ends at 5 p.m. in the afternoon, so it's like more than 8 hours a day. And they have to pour everything they know they have learned through their past 12 years in elementary, middle, and high school in just one day. It's amazing, yeah.
And that's only once a year too. Like
Yeah.
for the States, you can take the SATs every month.
Right.
But here, you only got one chance, and you fail.
One shot at it.
Yeah, you got
shot at
better luck next year, right? Yeah.
All right. I also wanted to talk about there are those who believe in superstitions. So, you know, I don't know if you guys got the hint already, but some of them would give out forks so that they could pick the right question, and some of them would avoid trying to eat food that are slippery so that the luck wouldn't slip away. That sort of thing. Have you heard this before?
I remember seeing students carrying these kinds of cushions. I didn't know what was that, and now I remember that probably that's from their seniors who got into good colleges to get good luck.
Very interesting.
Not only a cushion, right?
True
Or
that.
would they like eat anything that is good for them during this time, or just not eat at all?
Korean rice cake.
Rice cake.
Yeah.
Oh, the rice
because
cake.
it sticks.
Oh, right. So
Exactly.
Right, so if you could just go there and like stick to that university or whatever that you dream of. Very, very symbolic, but very interesting as well. And speaking of food, I mean, our health expert, Connie, I know you must have something to say.
Well, during this time, it gets cold and our bodies are more, fragile. So it's important to keep your immune system strong and built up for the winter season. And so I did a story this week on healthy foods, and not just any healthy foods, but foods that can build up your immune system and protect you from any colds or flus that are common during this winter season.
still autumn officially, but you wouldn't know it from the cold weather.
No, not at all. Aside from padding up on layers to prevent colds and flus, the Ys are bulking up their immune systems with superfoods.
Connie Lee joined us to tell us what we should eat with the chilly months approaching. Connie, hello.
Hey guys.
So Connie, what exactly is a superfood and what should we be eating?
Well, so superfoods are any foods that are really high in nutrients, and they also offer other health benefits. I mean, you can say that these foods are somewhat nature's medicine for the body. Now, there are many different kinds of superfoods, like the ones on display here, but there are certain foods and vitamins that dietitians recommend for this upcoming season.
Right, and Connie brought a box of these superfoods into the studio and she laid them out. It was very interesting, quite a number of them.
Right, there are so many of them actually, and so I focused on foods that are readily available this season, during this winter season. And so there's sweet potatoes, there's winter squash, mushrooms, and clementines, oranges, kale, if you're a vegetable fan, broccoli.
이찬 기자입니다. 네, 그 일찍에 와 있어요.
앞으로 간단하게 해 먹을 수 있는 요리 얘기해줘도 재밌지 않을까?
원래 그렇게 하려고 그랬어요. 요리사랑 해주면 요리사가 섭외가 안 돼, 해야 되는데. 여기 단 호박이 어디 있나요? 아, 저기요. 혹시 겨울 호박은 없죠?
딱히 겨울이라고 그렇게 해서 하는 거 아니고
단
이게
호박.
겨울철에 좀 많이 판매가 되고
And so I focused on a few of those superfoods, and I talked to many different dietitians and nutritionists. And of course, everyone has their own sort of opinions about which foods are better or how to eat certain foods. I mean, there's a new trend, a new diet trend called the raw food diet, where people are eating foods that are basically unprocessed, uncooked. In its raw, natural state. And so I talked to one doctor who's actually very famous in Korea right now, who's a strong advocate and a strong supporter of this raw food diet. And when I talked to him, I felt like I needed to be on this diet. So I was like, yes, yes, you're so right. Basically, he was saying, you know, foods like meat and eggs and milk, those are not real food. Like, humans should not be eating this. And those foods are the foods that are causing all the illnesses in our bodies.
They're
like
so
cancer.
good.
I know, yes. And so he was telling me that we need to focus more on foods in its natural state. But then on the flip side, I talked to a very, highly esteemed nutritionist in Seoul, and she said this raw food diet I don't think it's beneficial for everybody, and there are a lot of nutrients that you can get from cooked foods and a lot of nutrients that are missing when you just eat raw foods, and so she didn't really quite recommend this.
So
raw
what
food
are
diet.
some of them? What are some of the dishes that better ooze out nutrition when it's cooked?
Well, things like tomatoes, they say there are more nutrients that you can get out of them when they're cooked, and like winter squash. There's so many ways to make winter squash, and they said if you cook it, then there are other nutrients that you can get from it, and so there's a debate. And so I think in conclusion, though, I think there are people who can benefit from this raw food diet, like people with high cholesterol or high blood pressure or diabetes. But at the same time, I think you just need to find the right balance and just make sure that you're eating the right source of foods to keep your body healthy.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dr. Lee. But not only health food that will keep us healthy, but also regular exercise and workout
that's
as well.
important, yeah.
Yes, of course. And Hyun-bin, you must.
Sure do. The weather's getting chilly these days, right? So people tend to just stay indoors and just do nothing. That's got to be unhealthy, right? So just get out, get a couple minutes, maybe 10 minutes of exercise, and get some fresh air. So with that in mind, I went to Jeju. That was like
very
I did to get the freshest
workout
air.
and you down to Jeju.
Fresh there, go to the island.
Yeah, go to the island, right? I got the freshest air. There were two sporting events that I wanted to work on. One of them was the Olle Walking Festival, and the other one was the Jeju International Bicycle Challenge. The Jeju Olle, the thing about the Jeju Olle Festival, it consists of 27 trails. The Olle Trail goes all around the outskirts of the island of Jeju, and they didn't go through the whole trail because that's going to take like days. But they did a part, like maybe 1/10 of a trail that they could walk on for about 4 days. For each day, I think they walked about 13 to like 17 kilometers.
Quite a walk.
That is. But they go through like the oceans and all the beautiful points, like beautiful scenery.
How about the cycling event?
The cycling, there was like 230 kilometers. That's all around the island. That's the outskirts too. And there was about 150 kilometers race. And on Sunday, they had the same race going on, but they had an additional one, which was the hill climb race, where we go up Mount Hala. But it started to pour down rain on Sunday. I was there for 5 days, but first 3 days was incredible. It was perfect. I thought it was like early spring. But Sunday, it just started pouring rain, and it was hard to get the footage we wanted. Our cameraman was just like, I was driving, and the cameraman was like leaning out the window, try to get a moving shot, but it was hard to get an interview too because everybody was like soaking wet and they didn't want to interview. They just want to go someplace warm. So they're like, oh no, we don't want, So I'm just standing there in the rain. I'm like, yeah. Well, that was pretty bad. But after I got all the footage, we put it all together. I think it came out pretty well.
Wow, physically challenging. Oh my goodness. Well, Hyun-bin, you did a great job. Thank you very much. And do give us heads up on some of the programs or these events so that we can spend some quality time during our weekends.
Oh, sure will. If I find something, I'll let you know.
Okay, sounds great. All right, so everyone, thank you very much for your input and your contribution this week. Let's have some healthy food and do some exercising, to brace through this winter season. All right. Have a great day.
You too.
Well, this week, President Lee Myung-bak traveled to Indonesia and Thailand for a 5-day trip during which he attended a democracy forum in Bali and met with leaders of Indonesia and Thailand. Our presidential office correspondent, Jeju, was there.
Hello, I'm here in Bali following President Lee's 5-day trip to Indonesia and Thailand. President Lee arrived here yesterday, Wednesday afternoon, and today he attended the 5th Bali Democracy Forum as the co-host with his Indonesian counterpart Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono. He made a keynote speech during the first session of the meeting where he talked about how human rights issues are becoming more and more important as democracy matures around the world. Now, after wrapping up his trip here, President Lee will be heading to Bangkok Friday morning to meet with Thai Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra on Saturday. This is the first time for a Korean president to make an official visit to Thailand in almost 30 years. And then President Lee will be heading back to Korea on Sunday. And that's it from me here in Bali. I'll be updating you guys in our regular newscast.